Welcome to this explainer of Alyce Dylan's completely eye-opening book, Alone in a Sea of Normal. If you've ever felt like you're, operating on an entirely different frequency than everyone else around you, well, you are in exactly the right place. Today, we're setting the stage for a really profound journey of self-discovery. We're going to explore this fascinating concept together and answer a deeply personal question. How do you actually know if you're sixth-sensed or spiritually perceptive in a world that seems to be built entirely for people who only use five?
Okay, let's dive into this. Picture one single, vibrant blue umbrella standing out in the middle of this endless, repetitive sea of identical white ones. Have you always felt just a little bit out of sync, kind of like that blue umbrella? The author uses this imagery to describe the profound and, let's be honest, often totally exhausting feeling of being other. It's that sneaking, persistent suspicion you have that everyone else was somehow handed a secret instruction manual for life and yours just got left out of the box.
Which brings us to a core question, and I'm asking you directly here. Do you feel alone in a sea of normal? Think about it. Have you ever stood in a massive, bustling crowd, maybe a packed grocery store or a really loud party, and felt completely, entirely isolated, like you're on an island? It's not just about being an introvert. It's this fundamental disconnect from the way everyone else around you seems to be experiencing that exact same moment in time. If you're nodding your head right now, let's run through a quick diagnostic checklist pulled straight from the source material. Just ask yourself, do you absolutely crave deep, meaningful connection, yet constantly find yourself needing immense amounts of time completely alone to recharge? Does life often feel just too loud? And I don't mean the neighbor's stereo. I mean the sheer, overwhelming volume of life itself. Have you spent years kind of chameleoning yourself to blend in, acting the way you think you're supposed to? And because of that, do you ever worry that the authentic you has been completely lost along the way? If so, know this. The text completely validates these hidden experiences. You are definitely not alone in feeling this way.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how the author describes these traits. They aren't just quirky personality flaws, they are physical, sensory reactions. Like, are you viscerally, physically affected in your gut when you witness an injustice? When you hear the pure, unfiltered truth spoken, do you actually get goosebumps or chills on your arms? Can you walk into a room and instantly, without a single word being spoken, sense the shifting mood of the space? And think back to when you were a kid. Did you see right through the hypocrisy of adults way earlier than your friends did? Did you lose respect for them while other kids were still putting them on a pedestal?
So, what is actually happening here? Well, the text introduces a very specific definition of the sixth sense. And look, this isn't some sci-fi superpower. You're not going to start shooting lasers from your eyes or predicting the winning lottery numbers, right? In this context, the sixth sense is defined as the very real, tangible ability to receive and process energetic and emotional information from your surroundings, your environments, and the people around you. It's basically an extra stream of data that exists completely beyond the standard five physical senses of sight, sound, smell, taste, and touch.
And that perfectly tees up the term Indigo Adult. This describes someone who was born with this active sixth sense and has managed to survive into adulthood. If you were checking off a lot of the boxes on that checklist a minute ago, you might just be an Indigo Adult. For your entire life, you've probably been misunderstood. You've been told you're too sensitive or made to feel like you were somehow defective. But the text proposes something amazing. You're simply part of a new breed of human being trying to navigate a society that was literally constructed exclusively by and for the five senses.
And this brilliantly illustrates exactly why the rest of the world feels so baffling and, honestly, sometimes so hostile to you. It's a stark contrast between two entirely different factions of humanity. Think about the five sensed. They are action-driven, they operate on a strict "I'll believe it when I see it" mentality, they live in a much narrower band of reality, and they are usually completely oblivious to the external energetic emotions just floating around them. On the flip side, the sixth sensed. You are feeling-driven, you're energy-sensitive, guided by your intuition, and frankly, you're often assaulted by the emotional data of everyone else in the room. You're fundamentally driven by different forces.
To give you a super concrete example of the daily friction this causes, in a five-sensed world, a lie is only a lie when somebody proves it with hard evidence. But to the sixth-sensed, a lie sounds like a musical key that is completely flat. It has this dull, deeply recognizable resonance to it. You just know it the second you hear it. The inauthenticity of the world feels like actual sandpaper scraping against your very being. And it is exhausting trying to explain to people why something just feels off when they're standing there demanding physical proof.
So, the crucial point is, surviving this constant, grating friction takes an immense toll on a person. The text shares a genuinely tragic, sobering statistic. Historically, only 19 out of 20 highly sensitive people, or indigo children, choose to make it to adulthood. Just let that sink in for a second. The sheer crushing weight of all this incoming, unexplainable emotional data, combined with a world that constantly tells them they are broken or abnormal, makes the journey incredibly difficult. The pain of feeling totally unseen, it's profound.
But hey, we need to shift the narrative tone right here, right now. Alyce Dylan offers this incredibly powerful, validating thought. What if I told you that there is absolutely nothing wrong with you? Your otherness isn't some flaw you need to fix. It's not a psychological disorder that needs a cure. It is an evolutionary step. The world feels wrong to you because it is wrong for the unique way you process information. You aren't broken, my friend. You are just finely tuned.
Of course, acknowledging this doesn't just magically erase what the author calls the burden of empathy. It is heavy to feel the absolute, buzzing chaos of a mundane trip to the grocery store, or to suddenly absorb the overwhelming sadness of a weeping driver sitting in the car next to you at a red light. The author shares this striking personal story about it. As a teenager, the sheer overwhelming nature of her senses actually gave her a bleeding ulcer, so she was prescribed medication to dull her sensitivity. She took the pill, got on the school bus, and suddenly, the world went completely gray and flat. The noise was gone, sure, but so was all the vibrant, beautiful life. It perfectly illustrates the real danger of trying to silence who you fundamentally are just to cope.
But if you shouldn't just numb it away with a pill, how do sixth-sensed people learn to survive? Well, there are a few very common coping mechanisms. Many just self-isolate, essentially wrapping themselves in metaphorical cotton wool so they can avoid the abrasive world. Others develop this intense hyper-focus on a career or a hobby. In fact, you'll see highly successful people using intense specialization at work for the sole purpose of drowning out the overwhelming noise. Sadly, some turn to substances to try and quiet the internal alarm bells. And very commonly, because you have that deep, deep craving for connection, when someone finally breaches your walls, you might overbond with them. And that usually ends up sending people running, which just causes you more pain.
Let's move to and see how this builds into a very practical resolution. Because you don't have to live in a state of constant overwhelm, and you definitely don't have to just retreat from society forever. The path to authenticity involves 3 key steps. 1. Forgive the 5 cents. Honestly, they simply do not have the hardware to understand what you are experiencing. 2. Accept your traits. You can embrace your spiritual perceptiveness without needing to suddenly overhaul your wardrobe with silk caftans or burn incense all day, unless you want to, of course. You can still be entirely uniquely you. And 3. Set your internal frequency. By actively broadcasting a frequency of love, joy, or curiosity, you act as your own filter, empowering you to safely walk in public spaces without instantly absorbing everyone else's chaotic energy.
This whole explainer really challenges us to rethink what it means to be a deeply sensitive person. It is not a weakness, it is an advanced perceptive tool. Which leaves us with one final, incredibly powerful question for you today. Are you ready to finally drop your armor and step fully into your authentic, spiritually perceptive self? It's time to stop hiding behind all those coping mechanisms. You have a genuinely unique gift, and the world is waiting for the real you to finally show up.